ask you to estimate how many points of Conquest you have, and then we can do a future episode where we talk about us actually figuring it out properly and looking at all our boxes and figuring it out.
So we're doing an estimate.
Estimate, and then I'll tell you what I really want to do is that chart that Jamie did. Did you see on the group chat?
Yeah, I didn't look at it.
Yeah, but basically it was like all his minis for all his different game systems. And then he'd like done a percentage based on like whether they were built, painted, primed, based, all of that sort of stuff. Right. And then he put a metric where it's percentage done for each game and for each.
My percentages would not be good.
They'd be better than mine. I have an entire army that's not even built yet.
Okay, yeah. I have a small amount that is not built.
So I'm pretty sure, you're doing the best there. Because me and Josh were trying to compare who had the most unbuilt, and we were both at around 3k.
Yeah, no, I'm not like that. When I get things, I build them. But yeah, I've got many built minis that I have.
The problem is, it's just actually easier to store the boxes that have the miniatures than the miniatures themselves. Because once you put them in their little stands, it's like, this takes up more space. It takes up
more space, yeah. But I take the boxes, I get rid of the boxes, and then just store the sprues. Yeah. Because they store flat.
Yeah. Yeah, what, the leftover ones?
Like when the box is like that. But the sprues inside them are that. So I take the stuff out of the boxes and then just put the sprues like stacked up in my...
I did that for a while, yeah.
Oh, so you just get rid of all the boxes of your unbuilt stuff?
Yeah, so that top box, the one that I take out to get my big box out, in that top box is a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, there you go. If you're looking for any storage solutions, then please contact Sam at samisaacson@gmail.com.
Well, please do. That's not me.
You would lose us a lot of listeners if you showed how you packed away most of your minis.
Honestly, it's Sam, it's the thing I respect about you least is the way you store your Conquest minis.
Because I've gone to like putting magnetic material at the bottom of my boxes and then magnetising the bases, you know, for the models I've actually built and painted. You just stack them like child's toys,
like fully painted based miniatures, just like fumbled around into. I will give you place them very nicely, but surely stuff must just break all the time.
Well, some stuff does break, probably. Most of it I'm not aware of. It doesn't move around that much though, so like it goes in the box and it's quite like if you shake
it's like
it,
kaplunk.
If you shake it,
how many marbles can you hold on top?
If you shake it, it'll move around. But as it is, everything's like.
You know what, Sam? Yes, I am glad you don't shake the box full of painted.
I do get what you're saying though. Although they're all stacked in there, he's saying literally he moves them, puts them on his shelf, pulls them down next week. So the only time they're getting damaged is actually him physically taking them in and out of the box.
Yeah, but that's every miniature that you own is stored like that. And every time you do that, I mean, you must do that hundreds of times in a year.
80 or 90% of my list tends to be in the baubles box.
Oh yeah, you're right. The baubles box, that is much better. I will give you that. The box that I literally gave you because I was so disgusted.
Will you please just take this box of all the things in the world that you could do for me? Will you just please put them in here?
I just can't take it anymore.
For people wondering, about 3 or 4 years ago, I was in B&Q in like January, and they had these like quite tall boxes with these trays in to put baubles. And I was there, and I was like, well, because it's B&Q, I went and borrowed a tape measure, and I noticed that each of the like squares in these trays, the idea you'd put one bauble in each one, it was like 3 by 3 inches, and I was like, that is perfect for dropping in a Conquest stand. So I bought 2 of them, and me and Josh had one each. The problem was getting your models back out of these like little trays, like trying to get your fingers into these little 3 by 3.
It's also because of the design of them. Some of them weren't actually purely 3 by 3. They had little like edge bit which came into it. But
Yeah, some of the corner bits had like a little support that meant you couldn't quite fit a stand in. And if you had tall minis as well, they would, when you put the next tray on above, they would get a bit crushed. It wasn't perfect. It was our step into storage solutions that Sam has never stepped out of.
yeah.
It's because it does so well
our
for me.
first step was the upgrade for him.
I feel like I'm living this lap of luxury. Can't believe that I'm doing it. But bear in mind that so much of my army is force-grown drones, and they are the perfect size to just plop in on every level.
Oh yeah, on every level.
And look, stacking is great because I have 4 or maybe 5 boxes under my bed just for Conquest, because I only go one high.
That is such a great storage extension solution.
Do you know what's great? It's when we started, me and my wife had like half each, and she just didn't like the effort of sliding stuff out from under the bed. I don't know what it was. She was just like, she put some clothes onto there, forgot about them. She was like, you know what, Josh, you can have the whole under the bed. And all I heard was, you've got more room to buy more miniatures.
New army.
It's like, I'm only at 5 out of 8, guys.
Sorry, what's that, my love? You said I can get 2 new Conquest armies. There you go. Right. Well, we should probably start the podcast.
No, I think it's our best entrance yet.
We didn't even estimate the number.
No.
This started off with estimate how many points you got.
Well, no, we need to actually do the intro to the podcast.
10,000. 10,000.
No, stop. We need to do it later. Right. I'm Josh.
I'm Josh.
And I'm not Josh. But together we are. Joshing around in air.
I don't know what's going on. We're chatting about a lot of stuff. I mean, I'll include it in the episode, but there you go. I'm just going to come in cold with this. Boys, how many points of Conquest do you think you own? I'd like an estimate, and then we can come back at a later recording session and talk about what we've actually got.
10,000.
10,000, okay.
Yeah, I think I'm also going for 10,000.
I think I might be. I'm going to be play it coy. I'm going to say 9,000. 9,000.
I think it seems about right, because me and Sam have both gone. We got 2.5 armies. So
2.5. Oh yeah, you got Sorcerer Kings.
Yeah, so that's what I would say. Yeah. I've probably got about 4,000 of Nords and about 4,000 of Old Dominion. Like both of them I've got, and I think often it feels like around 4,000 points is kind of what you need to be able to play a few different competitive lists for your army.
Which is crazy.
Which is mad. And then I would say I maybe have a little over. I haven't quite got 2,000 points built of Sorcerer Kings, but I've still got some left to build. So that's why I landed on 10. But we'll see what it ends up as. I might just get bored of counting past 10,000.
I'm trying to reverse engineer this. Would you count like random characters and stuff from other factions?
Yeah, but no upgrades. Just base models.
Yeah, you don't give them upgrades, just base models, yeah. If I was to put this in the army list now.
Sorry, 4, 2, 1, 2, 4, 2, 1, 2. Yeah. I think maybe I wouldn't have more than 10,000. However,
it's a very reasonable amount of Conquest.
I do. I'm now just thinking like purely in monsters. I probably have.
Yeah, a considerable amount.
Yeah.
Have you got much Euroni yet?
No, it's all stuck in customs.
Oh, it's all stuck in customs.
Of it. When that comes, then that'll
boost the numbers up.
Okay. Yeah.
With no upgrades, my Fallen Divinity is a lot cheaper. But I was trying to think what I've got in monsters.
Mate, I've got Drumbeast, 2 Siegebreaker Behemoths, 4 Abomination. 4.
Yeah, 4 Abominations. You got 3 normals and 1 new build.
Yeah. And the high, oh gosh, Hephaestion.
I reckon okay. I mean, I've got 7 Jotnars, which I know from running lists is about 1,700 points.
Crazy.
Maybe 1,600 points. Then a Fallen Divinity. Oh, I've got an unbuilt Hephaestion as well.
Why have you got an unbuilt Hephaestion?
When were you doing?
I got it as for coming third at LGT last year. So my intention at the time, one, it was just a monster, and I like monsters. They're easier to build and paint than whole regiments. Second at the time, I was like, I might proxy it as another Jotnar because I didn't have 7
You didn't
yet.
have 7 at that point, yeah.
Well, I have a much more reasonable single monster because I'm a reasonable human.
That's not
That's
true.
a lie.
No, for
Yeah,
100
That is a lie.
Kingdoms. you
For
have
100
one
Kingdoms, I got
monster,
one monster at 260 points. But I've also got a Hellbringer Drake and an Ironclad Drake that are both unbuilt. That's a lie. I built the cannons. Do you know why I built the cannons for the Hellbringer Drake? Because I saw that everyone who builds Hellbringer Drakes doesn't sort out the massive gap you get when you put the cannons together because they're two halves and they're just not, because they're older sculpts, they just don't go together well. So I honestly, I just looked at it and I thought, this is going to be so nice to put some sprue goo in and just fill out the gaps, and I've done it and it feels amazing. And honestly, I did that and I was like, I'm not interested in Dwag anymore. I've completed what I came here for. Oh dear. Well, they'll be getting an update, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, right. Should we talk about what we're drinking? Josh, what have you got us?
So today we are going for some stronger stuff. This is a Kentucky bourbon. It's called Wild Turkey 101 because it is 101 proof.
Okay, what does that mean, Josh? And you have 60 seconds to explain to us what that means. Not 20 minutes.
Oh, you just half it and you get volume like we do in the UK. So it's 50.5%.
Oh, okay. All right, fair enough. Well, now I feel like an arse.
You had an entire 60 seconds to go there. You could have really rinsed that
You had time spare. Could have talked to us more about your meat.
Well, we'll speak about the mead soon, I'm sure. But yeah, no,
Thank you.
this stuff's good. Some. Oh, thank you. I could speak more about these glasses that are.
I'm going to say that those, the enjoyable
Heavy.
thing about drinking whiskey in your house, I mean, apart from it's nice whiskey, of course, but the glasses that you have are the heaviest glasses that I've ever lifted in my life.
Oh, and you've got the least heavy of our glasses. That's light work. This is like,
Yes.
look at the.
Oh,
No,
these
those are the ones I'm
That's
talking
like an
about,
inch
yeah.
of glass.
Yeah.
So this was someone gave me some money to buy a present quite a few years ago. I always have to like justify why I have these, and it was enough money to buy 2 of these, which are Cumbria hand cut crystal glasses. They're the last company to hand cut their crystal in the UK, and this particular tumbler was well, not this exact one, but this model was drunk by James Bond in Casino Royale, and it is the cut glass of what's that show, you know, the old timey one that everyone goes on about?
Cheers.
Not quite that old, a bit
Friends.
more modern. No, the English one, like the
Faulty Towers or something like that.
no.
you
Downton
kind of-
Abbey. Downton Abbey.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hello. Yeah, no, you said it. It makes perfect sense.
Carry on.
But anyway, so
There
they
you go.
are.
So the James Bond glasses, they were on, you know,
Downton Abbey.
Only Fools and Horses.
Yeah, just all of them.
And now Josh is destitute after buying these.
I'm also in constant fear that now that I have a 18-month-old daughter, that she is going to get her hands on these one day and they're going to go.
You keep them in that cupboard.
It's brave. It's brave.
I need to work out
You
where to
haven't
put
even
them.
got the child lock on there.
It's got quite a strong magnet on there, but I
okay.
think she probably can open it.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Cheers.
Yes.
Cheers.
Oh, it burns.
Ah.
Yeah, it's good, right?
Oh, I love it. So sweet. It's
This is good. This isn't actually even my strongest whiskey. I've got one in there I've been saving for when I sign a big contract at work. It's 58.5%. It's cask strength. So that's like straight when they get it out the barrel. Often they water it down to 40. But this one they just bottled as is.
Oh, mad. Well, thank you, Josh, for sharing your bourbon with us.
yeah.
No, you're very welcome.
It's a special one.
I will, as with all whiskies, give it a 0 out of 10 because I hate whiskey. But thank you very much for
What, you don't
sharing
find
it.
this one like a little bit sweet?
No, you know what? I'll give it a 1.5 because there was a little bit of sweetness in my mouth after the burn. Honestly, I feel bad drinking your whiskey. I'm just wasting it. But no, it is good for whiskey. Thank you. Sorry, someone else talk about it.
I think the way to appreciate whiskey as somebody who does not enjoy whiskey is to drink lots of whiskey.
Right.
Is to drink
Stockholm
different
syndrome is the answer. Is that what you're
different
saying?
sorts of whiskey so that you can appreciate the difference that there is in flavours.
It's like, I hate that, but I can taste a little bit more smokiness in it.
So, I've got 2 whiskies at home, and one is a very smoky one, and one is quite a sweet one. And that you smell them both,
Yeah.
and you immediately can go, "Oh yeah, right.
different.
I get what the experience is." You know.
Yeah, that Lefroy 10 is very smoky. The other thing you could do is try some cocktails. So, I mean,
An old fashioned.
Yeah,
an
that's a
old
nice
fashioned.
one.
I think that's a great way. I mean, you're just adding sugar, a tiny bit of water, some orange and some bitters. Like, you can still taste the whiskey, but I think it's like just enough that if you're trying to get into it, it's just everything that takes the edge off.
Okay.
Next time we'll make it an old fashioned.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, there we go. I appreciate you trying to convert me, Josh, and your work is, I'm sure it will pay off one day when I become a raging whiskaholic.
I tried very hard. I took you on a distillery tour,
You
didn't I?
literally did, yeah. And I bought you and our friend a
Johnny Walker Blue.
Johnny Walker Blue.
It was a baller moment.
Yeah, it was the most. I think it's the most I've ever spent on my friends. I think they were doing quite a good deal on it. I'll be real, but
I must say it was the best price I've ever seen it at. I mean, usually Johnny Walker, like you go for a single in London, it's like £40 or something crazy, and it was a fraction of that.
Yeah, I know, it's nice.
It's good.
There you go. In Scotland, drinking it. There you go. Right. I've got a question here from Troy H. This says, Troy from the wilds of Indiana in the States here. Is that our first question from across the pond?
I mean, Mass is across the pond.
Yeah, but not across the pond. You know what I mean? He's still. They've got the Queen on their money. Like, that doesn't count, does it?
Queen?
Do you know what I mean?
What do you mean? I heard they're going to be the 51st state.
I think that the king, when he delivers his address very soon, is going to need to have a say in that.
Yeah.
King, not queen. Just for the...
Yeah, I know, but they've still got the old money. Like, they haven't started printing it that soon, have they?
Yeah,
I bet
they must
Mark
have.
Carney's
care
going
about
to
it.
stick his foot on that accelerator pedal, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
President of Canada.
Oh, yeah, Mark Carney, the new president of Canada. Yeah, thanks.
I wanted to say Prime Minister, but then you said President, I doubted myself.
Oh, it is Prime Minister,
Maybe
because
it
the
is
king
Prime
is still
Minister
head
if
of
the
state
king
for
is
that.
there, yeah.
For them. There you go.
Does France have a king? Because they've got
They had a revolution.
Yeah, they got rid of that.
They were for not having
Well, we had a revolution. We still got a king.
I
Yeah,
don't
but
think
we
it was
didn't
quite
have
the same as
guillotines.
theirs. Yeah.
I think that we
I think
had
the
a
guillotines made the
I
difference.
think this is quite actually an interesting moment in English history that we had a revolution and we didn't have a king for about 6 months.
Yeah. It was just Oliver Cromwell was in charge, but not a king for somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was between Charles I and II, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Charles the First that lost his head. Is that right?
Yeah, he was beheaded. And
No,
then,
it wasn't Charles the First.
yeah,
Because Charles the First was he was the first. Oh no, I'm thinking James the First. That was the first Scottish king. There you go. Sorry.
Was that James I and VI?
Yes, James the First of England, James the Sixth of Scotland. There you go.
all I remember of Charles II is he was a big partier, and I know that because, like many people in my generation, I watched and read horrible histories.
Yes, a core British experience.
Oh,
Right, so Troy H. He says also your 487th biggest fan. Troy, that's very bold of you to assume we have that many fans, but I appreciate it. He says,
Yeah, you could just sit there and just keep on waiting for the other 480 to line up.
I'm not a strong meta gamer. My method of finding meta synergies in a faction, how the various special rules from unit to unit or character mesh together to make something greater than the parts. My method of discovering those is to let my opponents slap my forces hard with the synergies. Okay. Oh, I see how that works now. I feel like I'm experiencing this email vicariously through him. So if you were teaching me the game, which factions would you recommend and why? Better yet, rank the factions in terms of most to least complex meta synergies in their rule. Okay, that I like that question. That's a good question. So what are the easiest factions to play and what are the hardest factions to play? I think we vaguely covered it before, but I think stuff has changed enough now that I reckon we can.
And this is
can redo that
from the perspective of how do things particularly work well together in terms of synergies.
Yes. Basically, just play anyone but spies and you're fine.
No, I wouldn't go down that route at all.
I reckon probably the easiest place to start is Old Dominion, because there's not like loads of rules. Like they've added 100 kingdoms now. There's different synergies in list building. It's these are the stats. You have got the tokens, but that's quite simple. And they're just you get good stats for your points, and really you just put a lot of it together, and it doesn't hugely matter if you've got loads of synergies between it.
I would, as a slight caveat to that, I would say the actual playing experience of 100 Kingdoms once you have made the lists is fairly simple.
Right.
I'd say that's still simple to play. I think the thing that will be a challenge is remembering all the rules and all the synergies that overlap and things like that.
Yeah.
But I would say Old Dominion, you still have two mechanics that you've got to pay attention to, which is A, what tier you're on, and B, how the memories of old work. And if you're then trying to also do loads of movement and stuff like that, that might be a little overwhelming, but I don't think it'll be too bad. So I think, you could honestly go for either of those factions and you'd probably have a pretty decent time.
Yeah, so I would go Old Dominion. That's my knee jerk.
Right.
Don't take the Fallen Divinity because that adds another layer of complexity. But anything else, it's the only thing that is making that complex is gathering the tokens, and then that basically just gets a little bit more complex the later in the game you go. So I think that's quite a good one. I think Dweg. That's pretty.
I think it depends on what warlords you take. Obviously, if you take the Tempered Creed, you'll end up having to pay attention to tokens that ignore defenses or whatever.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I think even that is simple. Yeah. So what we're saying, Dweg, 100 Kingdoms. So maybe Old Dominion easiest, then 100 Kingdoms, then Dweg, or maybe the other way around.
See, I would put Dweg before 100 Kingdoms because with the new thing with all
the list building is hard. I will give you that. Yeah, okay. That's cool.
Now I got to say a different one here. I think Nords, in terms of synergies, there's not that many different synergies.
Yeah, I actually think Nords is easier than...
And especially with some of the like new updates that have happened, they make it even easier because like the Blooded says, if you pick Ugger or Trolls, they have Dread. You know, like the synergy's right there for you. You don't even have to do any research. It's like get a Blooded, stick some of those in the warband. The only thing I'd say is then, so I think in terms of building something that has some synergies, Nords is super simple of. I would say as playing, it still is a little bit glass cannon. There's a lot of stuff that dies kind of quickly, and so I think it's probably maybe a little bit harder to play than maybe like we talked about Tueg and 100 Kingdoms. When you get on the board, I feel like they are maybe a little bit more forgiving, possibly. But in terms of building a list with synergies, there's not like you've got to do loads of intricate things. It's quite simple. And the other thing as well, now that they've got the tribes as well, kind of pick a tribe, stick in the tribe. Again, like it makes it really easy to build an army.
Yeah, because the question was specifically to do with synergies, wasn't it? So, yeah, you'd almost have probably Old Dominion, then maybe Nords, then Dweg, then, you know, I don't know, what else have you got? I don't know, what are your only like?
Well,
because they're a little bit like, I wouldn't use it to teach you the game because you won't learn how to card stack properly.
Yes, I agree with that.
But I would teach you it in terms of like, I don't know if the synergies are that complex. I know the list building can be a little bit funky with the like kind of like the modular thing they've got going on with the stands, but I think it would potentially be quite an easy army to pilot at the beginning.
I do feel like your only feels like an army that is easy to start off with. As somebody who knows the game, pick up your Oni, and it's like, well, you can build a list and you can play it, and it doesn't even really. You could like shuffle your cards as your order, because then you just activate them in the order, and every time that it lines up, then that's a nice little special treat.
Yeah.
But it feels like hard to master because you can tweak your list building more than with any other army, because so much of it can be modular. So yeah, you could come up with some really unique looking lists.
Stay away from Sorcerer Kings, I think is probably our best advice. Like they have recently been reworked, and there's just, that is the army that loves synergies, and both in list building and actually as you play, setting stuff up. They've got this new rule, Ignite, where like the fire elementals make other units ignite and make its own units ignite, and then you can do rituals to like do loads of damage to enemy units, or you can like buff friendly units, and so you're constantly trying to set up these combos and synergies, which is really cool if your player really wants to like getting deep with it. But yeah, for a new player, that's probably peak of what Conquest synergies look like.
Yeah, there you go. Well, there you go. So start yourself off with Nords or Old Dominion. You'd have a great time. Maybe move on to Spies and Sorcerer Kings a bit later. There you go. It's interesting. I find like you look at all the kind of winners of tournaments, they all tend to be Wadroon players. Yeah,
Wadroon is, I would say, probably higher up there as well, isn't it?
Yeah, because you need to be thinking about which cults you're going to be aligning with, and then things do buff each other. It's the same with Spires. I think if you went for a lineage highborn warlord and you stuck with some pretty basic units, then I think you could build a list reasonably easily. But as soon as you stick the Ferromancer in there, where you're shuffling cards all over the place, and then with the the Leonine Avatar lineage Prideborn character, then you really want other cavalry units around there to benefit from the increase in impacts. it can get pretty complicated pretty quickly. So
I can't remember where I saw this, but they actually released a like a bunch of stats, didn't they, for like the most played armies and things like that.
yeah,
I think Wardroom was probably the most played. Maybe Old Dominion.
I mean, I think
It was probably because it's like a bunch of dinosaurs in it. People love.
Yeah, so I think Wadroon, I think, was the most popular, which is no surprise, really. It was nice to see from those stats that it looked like a good
That was very
in
even,
terms of
yeah.
performance.
So it was Wadroon at 15.3%, followed by Old Dominion at 15.1%.
That's close.
Followed by City States at 13.4%, followed by 100 Kingdoms at 13%. Then it was Nords, Dweg, Spires, Sorcerer Kings, Euroni.
But you only had just come out.
Just been released.
That week or something.
The other interesting thing was how they're done in tournaments.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, like top 3 tournament placement, wasn't it?
Yeah, so Euroni did best, but I would say it's probably an outlier looking at the fact that 0.3% played. I think it's probably one guy won a tournament and has...
You mean you only did worse?
No, they did best.
Because of the ones that they performed in.
So of the ones that they'd performed in, 62% of people placed in the top.
Oh, yeah, you're looking at the graph, not the pie chart, right? Yeah.
So the pie chart is how many people play them, but the graph is how well they performed.
There's a second pie chart.
Pie charts, yeah.
And on the second pie chart, it is the faction distribution weight with
in the top 3.
The top 3 tournament placement, yeah, which actually tells you what's going on. So yeah, you're only a dead last. Actually, no, they are, yeah.
But yeah,
they've got such a tiny slice of the pie you can barely see.
Oh, it's mad.
Bless them.
But yeah, on how well they did it was Euroni, followed by Wadroon, followed by Sorcerer Kings and City States and Old Dominion. And then
so on the second pie chart with the weighted with faction distribution, Wadroon were first, 18.7%. Then it's Old Dominion, 16.7%. Then it's City States, 15.2%. Then you got 100 Kingdoms. Oh, you got Nords, 12%. 100 Kingdoms, 10.7%. Dwegum, 10.1%. Sorcerer Kings, 9.2%. Spires, 7.1%. Then Euroni, 0.4%.
So actually, the particularly interesting thing there today, presumably, is the comparison between the 2 pie charts. Because if you've got a large proportion of people playing Wadroon,
they're not that different, the 2 pie charts, I have to admit.
So that's what you would hope and expect for then, isn't it? Spires drops off a bit.
Yeah,
Spires drops. I mean, Spires, when you go to the average placement, Spires is the worst by quite a margin, with 41% of players finishing in the top 3.
Sounds familiar. Outperforms me, but...
That 100 Kings, Dweg and Nords are all with them, with less than 50% in the top 3.
100 Kings, Dweg and Nords. That's interesting, isn't it? Because those are the first 4 factions that came out, so they're the people that have been playing the longest, maybe.
In fact, if anything here...
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing for a long time, and I certainly haven't placed top 3 in any major tournaments.
Apart from Wadroon as an outlier, there generally seems to be a slight trend up on this graph, which would suggest power creep.
Yep.
Right, we should probably stop talking about graphs that our listeners can't see. That were shared on a London group chat.
It was shared by Parabellum on the Facebook page.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
there we go. Right, we wanted to have a quick little chat, didn't we, about something. I can't remember what it was.
It was Sam's idea about...
oh, yeah. Sam, tell us about your idea.
I can't remember what it was that triggered this thought, really. My wife plays tennis, and she gets very excited about going off to her tennis club and then spends the evening like just running around, like not playing tennis. So they'll do something where they're playing on a half court, and then something where they're just taking serves against each other, and then something where they're doing some silly little game that is sort of building up a particular skill that helps them in the game. And yeah, the thought struck me, like, what is it? Are there any sort of drills that we could do? Because all that happens when we meet is we have a 2,000 point army and we play a game against each other. And then you hope that you go away from that and think, oh, what could I have done differently? Let's try and make it better for next time. Change my list, learn a lesson or two. But that's kind of it. And so I was thinking, is there an exercise or two that you could do alone or with other people to brush up your skills in advance of a tournament? It's not a leading question. It was just a thought that came to me one day.
Yeah, I think there's I remember seeing something in one of the narrative plays boxes. I watched a YouTube video on someone playing it. I think it was in the Dwagon versus 100 Kingdoms. There was like a scenario in which you, as the 100 Kingdoms, held like a tower or something like that. I can't remember if it was the narrative play or they just made their own scenario. But essentially it was a bit like a kind of horde thing. So you'd have less, I don't think it was quite like unlimited, but like you had to hold this tower and you're in a more entrenched position. So you kind of get some shots off and all of this sort of stuff. But the enemy had to take the tower, and as long as you took the tower, you won. But it was a bit more like like you could almost set up a scenario in which you're like, what I'd love to do in Conquest, which actually we had so much fun when we played Gorgon Walker, was the siege.
Yeah.
We had the fortress, I think it was called the fort, wasn't it? And it was like this fortress in the middle, and then you basically went all sides and attacked it. I think honestly it would be well fun if we had like set up a fort in the middle, basically treated it like garrison terrain. You get +1 to your defense when you're in there, and like people can try and attack you, but so you've almost got like different little scenario. And I guess this isn't really what you were talking about. What you're talking about more is drills, but you can have these little scenarios in which you're having to test like your ability to do certain things, where you're like, how do you do well with like target prioritization with your volleys? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think actually a scenario like that might help you to be a bit better at that.
I suppose what I was particularly thinking is there are some obvious moments in games where we play where you're faced with a decision like, do I sit on this objective and score it, or do I leave the objective in order to charge a unit and hold it up in order to protect this other one that is scoring, and actually that is going to lead to a better outcome if it works. And you tie yourself up in knots and you end up choosing one thing or the other. Or you're in a situation where you could charge one thing or you could move in a different direction, and how do you make that decision? Like, I play chess on my phone, and every day then that presents me with, here are some puzzles. You're in this situation, what do you do? Just try it out, and it will give you immediate feedback and tell you, no, you idiot, you're trying to fork this thing.
Yeah.
And there just isn't something like that for Conquest. It seems to be, you make the mistake and then you try to reverse engineer what would have happened if I had done something else.
Yeah, that is the whole thing about chess, because if you're like really into it, you can go back and put all your plays into like a bot, and it will tell you the percentage, how correct your move was, which you can't do with Conquest.
Well, maybe we've got an AI guy here.
Maybe that'll be our next thing. We'll create the Conquest
analyzer
app. Analyzes your...
Run the scenario overnight a million times and come up with the best outcome.
I mean, the other thing people do in chess, which is what I thought of, but it's not really a short thing to do, is they play against themselves. So you could theoretically set up, games at home where you just play against yourself, but that does feel, I don't know, I think we all have a lot of fun playing against each other. It's not like you can surprise yourself with the move, is it? You can't surprise yourself, but you can try stuff out. So I think, like what Sam was saying, you can work out whether or not you leaving that objective, you actually get to try that out in a game and see how it works. And so, people who play each other in, practice playing against themselves in chess, they're obviously not going to trick themselves with a move, but they are trying out different plays to see whether they could even work out how to beat that play or what it would look like. And so I think you could do the same, where you try out strategies against yourself. But that does feel a large dedication. But I'm sure that would help, because I think what we have found helps a lot is just repeated practice, like whether it's even remembering all your rules, or whether it's just, I tried this last time and it didn't work out particularly well, whether it's, actually I've played lots of games and when I've just stuck on the objective, I've just won on points, even though I maybe lost a tactical advantage. So I think like volume of games really does help with that. And yeah,
there's probably something about openings and closings of games.
So I guess on that note, like the time I was particularly sweaty was probably before LGT last year, because they release all the scenarios.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But even if they don't, you could just look at the scenarios. But I remember my list was a particularly aggressive out there first list, and so for each game I had a game plan of, okay, when it gets to this scenario, I know this unit's going to go for that objective, this one's going to go for that one, this one's going to go for that one. This will be the turn order of how ideally, if I roll normally, how I'll bring them out. And so again, what it meant there was when I got to each game, I knew exactly how I was going to start it, and how my opponent, they then had to work out how to respond. So I guess that's a tiny bit like that. You could have different strategies, your army, how it's going to react to different scenarios. And I think that's quite a big thing, because we have a lot of games where we get like to turn 4 or 5 and we're like, man, I should have brought this guy over here because I now can't get to that objective, or I can't, destroy that marker. And I think, that is definitely an area where I think a lot of people overlook it in the game, and knowing more how the scenarios work and where you need to put units is a big advantage.
I think if there was a way to speed up the acknowledgement of how placement affects the game, that would be helpful, because I feel like sometimes you put something, because basically games can be won or lost on where you decide to place your units on the battlefield, because movement is so difficult in Conquest, like specifically horizontal movement across the battlefield. And so I guess it's just a little bit of a thing of like, sometimes you can place stuff in the wrong place, but you don't quite realise it until you get to turn 7 or turn 6, do you know what I mean? And by then it's kind of too late to really, you played a whole game, and sometimes you may, like, you're trying to analyse a whole game, you may miss little things. So if there's like almost like a, I don't know, like an objective way you can look at things and go, if I place this thing here, I know that this person's going to respond with that thing, and then in 4 turns time it will look like this. And I feel like when I played Josh, he's probably quite good at that. Whereas me, I'm kind of like, where do I want stuff? I think I want to hear this bit of the battlefield is looking a bit empty, so maybe I'll send something off there. And like, it's nice when you got your heavies coming on a bit later, because you think about where they get placed, but obviously they're slow to arrive. But I think it'll be interesting to see if there's like a thing like you basically put your unit down and then someone goes, nope, wrong place, try that. Like you almost want, you get like a little Conquest coach to help you along.
Well, yeah, it would be, I suppose there's something about the game of Conquest is extremely heady. There's obviously you're moving things around, and then there's the dice, which is a big factor. So actually the choice to go for a charge, whether that's right or not, it's just dependent on whether you're going to roll the right number on the die.
Yes.
But there's a lot of it that you could just play over in your head. Like you don't need to physically be moving things around on a table necessarily. Might help. But yeah, like the game that we played last week, I had watched Magnus, what's his name?
Magnus Carlsen, yeah.
Talking about how in chess, he said it's like this throwaway statement. In chess, what you tend to do is build up an attack on one side and then switch the side of the board that you're attacking from. Right. I thought, right. I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll try applying that to Conquest. You can't do it with much. You can do it with Strix, maybe.
Right, okay.
Which is why I put Strix down one side, I put everything else down the other, knowing I'm going to be pulling the Strix over. That's all I want to do with them.
Yeah.
And and it didn't quite work. I mean, it worked a little bit, but it didn't quite work in the way that I was hoping that it might. And so trying something out, I think that chess is actually similar to Conquest in some ways. Trying something out and seeing how it works, and then just going and thinking about it a lot.
Yeah.
That's probably it, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe.
Me and Josh had a game the other day, which I remember, I think it was turn 4. I had this turn of totally deciding how the whole game was going to play out. So we had, I'm trying to think, it was 4, there was, 4 objective zones. And we had this piece of impassable terrain right in the middle of the board. So as you can imagine, the board was split pretty much dead on 50-50. And I was running 7 Jotnars, and I think I'd failed all my rolls. This might have been the game. So it gets to turn 4, and I have got more than half my army still to bring on. And Josh has committed his entire army to one half of the board. So I've got some regiments running up the other side of the board, and I have to decide, do I just fully embrace the other side of the board, knowing I'm maybe a turn or 2 behind, but then we're both going to have this fun game of trying to both attack either north or south of this impassable thing and see who can break through? Or do I try and just leave those guys on that side, keep scoring that side for a bit, and just send what's left of my army down the right hand side? Because this was a game where regiments counted for points. And so though I was behind on points because Josh was scoring first, could my Jotnars kill more points than they gave away?
Yeah.
And so I remember I had this big thing of, do we have this big fight around the middle and see how that goes? A bit of a stalemate, who can push through? Or do I have this, I send this little band off to die, but they got to see if they can take more out with them? And it was I went for the second choice, and I won the game, so it worked out. But I remember spending all that time I'd love to. We finished at midnight, so we definitely weren't going to do it then. But I was I'd love to go back to turn 4 and replay it the other way to see how it would have performed differently.
That is very interesting, because as soon as you described that, I knew exactly what I would do every single time.
What was that?
What you did.
You just go for the...
Yeah, but it's because I've just noticed it now, really. The way that I see the board, I don't see it as a 2-dimensional shape that I just happen to be coming in on one side. I see it as sort of laid out in front of me, and I'm just coming from point 0 up my reinforcement line to point 1, that side. And so it's just 2 sides of the table. I don't really see the options for coming around the other side. So it's just, I've committed on that side, I'm scoring it, right, I'm going down the other side then. If I'm not getting attacked on that side, I can just leave it. It doesn't even occur to me that something there might come over.
Well, I think it's you're not wrong in necessarily thinking that, because it does take so long to turn stuff around. So I do hear that. I have had a couple of games, especially when my all cavalry list was doing quite well, where basically I could just sweep the back end of the board and go sideways, and that was amazing because I pushed through on one flank. I think Josh, with your Jotnars, that would be probably quite easy, because it's quite easy to turn them around.
So that's why I was thinking that for this game, because I was I'm move 7, so I'm much faster than a lot of your move 5, and a lot of the gaps were big enough to fit 2 Jotnars through, but some of Josh's big blocks of 100 Kingdoms, very hard to kill, but they would just get stuck there. And so I was trying to work out, did I have more of an advantage because I've got the movement and I can maybe get 2 Jotnars into 1 regiment? But yeah, I don't know. Definitely, but maybe what you could do is have games, or even back to the practice by yourself. Maybe not even do whole games, but just play out little scenarios like that. And if you were doing a game by yourself where you were just playing both sides, you could probably almost just skip some of the dice rolling and just have, we all have rough estimates of when this big block meets that smaller block, it's probably going to win and lose one stand along the way or something. You know, you could probably try and shorten things down and only roll when it's really a key.
That thing though, that word probably, it's like with winning the supremacy roll. Like the advantage gives you a 67% chance of winning or knowing that the other person's going to win. So that's probably, but that probably often isn't enough. Like probably being able to make a charge, isn't it? Like a roll of a 5 when you've got a re-roll, that's more than half. That's like 67%, isn't it?
When you got a re-roll, you're looking at getting close to 90 if it's so I know that it's a good enough opportunity that it feels like it's worth going for. But it's kind of worth going for because we had one the other day where one of us went for a roll which was a 5, I think, and the first roll was a 2. I think it was me going for it. I rolled a 2 and then I pick up the die and think, I'm not at all confident I'm going to make this. So the thing that makes me compare that to is I used to play a lot of poker. And so in poker, there's a thing of sometimes you look at your probability of winning versus the consequences of you winning. So if you are only stand a 30% chance of winning the hand, but because for whatever reason the pot has got so big you're going to win 5 times your money, you do it because even though you're only right 30% of the time, the 30% that you're right, you would win more than losing the other 70. And so it all gets down to this weird percentages game of like, what is the consequences? And so sometimes you'll keep chasing hands even though you are likely to lose the hand, because the amount you win on the few times you get lucky is worth pursuing it. And so it gets a very...
And the consequence is not that bad, because the pot isn't whatever, yeah.
And so I know sometimes the way I think you can apply it to Conquest is there's sometimes where you're like, if I fail this charge, it's devastating. Like, I need to be on that objective to stop you scoring. And so if I can charge clash, there's a big advantage. The fact I get to do a lot of damage. But if I fail... you might get to like push me so I never get onto that objective, or you know, there's various reasons where like the chance of failure is so devastating to the game it's not even worth the roll, even if it's a very, very easy roll.
Every time we have one of these conversations, I come away thinking, I'm so bad at this game. Everything that I do is so emotive. The other night, this game was absolutely ridiculous. How on earth did it was pretty close. The score was pretty close at the end, but it shouldn't have been anywhere near as close as it was. There was one turn where I put my Strix first, and it was literally based around, I don't want my Strix to die yet. I quite like Strix. It wasn't strategic at all.
I think that worked out for you, didn't it? I don't know. You must just charge some longbowmen at some point.
No, it didn't work out for me because I went first with my Strix.
Oh, yeah.
Healed back my stand.
Oh,
did my little attack, and then you drew your first card, and it wasn't any of the things that were Strix. It was right. I'm going to charge.
I also
right
remember you trying to kill one wound, and you couldn't even
that
do
was
that.
Horrible.
That was the one time 1s and 2s weren't rolling for you. Oh no, that's because you were rolling for 3s. Because the clash of the 3, you can't roll 3s, Sam. You can do 1s and 2s, but
get
not 3s.
dread on your units, Josh.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, I don't know if you guys ever played this. I was obsessed, and probably am still obsessed occasionally, with the game Rome Total War. And I remember there were 3 different modes. So you had the campaign mode, which is basically like playing a long, like maybe a slow grow league of like Conquest, where you play over several games and you slowly build up in points and stuff, and it's good for newcomers. You then also had instant action, or it's called, or maybe it was like custom battles. I think it might have been custom battle, which is basically what the experience of Conquest is. You set the amount of points you have. Each unit costs a certain amount of points, and you build up an army based on that kind of level of points. And if you're Rome, you include some Praetorians and some Legionnaires, and you just have a lot of infantry, and then you're probably doing all right. Whereas if you're, I don't know, like some sort of Persian faction, you'll probably have a lot of like chariots and cataphractoi and stuff like that. Actual cataphractoi, not flipping Old Dominion nonsense. But you'd have this thing of like, this is much more the experience of a normal game of Conquest, right? You've each got your 2,000 point lists. Then you have like historical battles which you play. And so it'll be like the Battle of Teutoburg Forest. And so you are playing as the Romans who are being besieged on both sides by, Germanic tribes. And you have to like fight your way out against the odds. And I think that's quite fun because it literally starts you as, at the point in which the general would notice what's going on. And by then you've already got some units being attacked, one's running away, and so it's like it starts you really in the thick of it, and then you've suddenly got to do a bunch of stuff to like get yourself out of it. I was like, and I think maybe there could be like little scenarios like that, like Josh was saying, like in Conquest, where you almost start halfway through a battle, and it's like turn 5, you've committed everything. It's like you've lost a few units, there's 2 stands of bowmen left and whatever, and then you've got to kind of fight your way out of it, and it's like, right, how would this go? So maybe there's a solution there.
I often take photographs at the end of each turn as we're playing, and I think like turn 4 and turn 5 are often like it's a decisive turn. Like if whoever wins this is going to have a big influence over the outcome. And I think maybe like I should go back and make sure that I'm taking those pictures like at the moment we're entering turn 4, turn 5, just to see what did the difference end up being between 4 and 5, or between 5 and 6. Like that was big, but what was it, and what could I have done differently that would have led to a different, better outcome for me? I definitely don't do that. That would be helpful. Maybe I'll start winning games after this conversation. There
you go.
Definitely, I think your point of like not getting too emotional over stuff like, I don't want that to die, can help. Because I've definitely had games where, I don't know, I guess I'd compare it to like sacrificing your queen in like chess.
Yeah.
But like maybe you've got this big block with your character in, and if they don't go first, they might lose a fight over him, possibly die. But I've got maybe a little regiment on the corner of the board that is right near an enemy objective zone, and if that goes first, it can get on the zone, kill the enemy, and then it can just sit there for 3-4 turns and score. And so sometimes I'm like, oh man, it would really suck if this heavy big regiment with lots of my points and a character in died or was significantly behind. But just losing them and focusing this one small regiment on the side that can then score for 4 turns mean I'm sacrificing a big unit, but my little unit's going to have a big impact on the game. I have sometimes found there's a couple of games where you have decisions like that, where your easy thing is just, this is loads of my points here, I can't let that die. Where sometimes there's scenarios where you're like, oh man, I should let that die for the kind of bigger picture of where the points are.
It's interesting because chess is a bit of a points game. Like you want to trade well. Like you want to trade a knight for a bishop. You don't want to trade a bishop for a pawn. Right? That would suck. But it gets to a point, especially towards the end game, maybe even the late middle game, where you're thinking it goes away from just trading well to the actual point of the game, which is, the point of chess is not to have the most amount of pieces on the board. It is to stalemate. It's to checkmate the king. And it's like, at the end of the day, Conquest is not a killing game. It's a points game. And it's like, how many points have you got? That's how you win.
100%.
It's not how many, like, unless you're playing melee. But even then, I think the amount of, like, in our game, it did come into mattering, but generally speaking, like even kill point scenarios, you still want to get on objective zones because they still score you so many points.
Oh yeah, And I think, like you said with chess, often the first few turns you want to trade well. Like if you lose a whole load of regiments early turns and don't really get anything for them, it sucks. But there does hit a point where you're like, it no longer matters if I've got more. And I've lost enough games of Dominion where I had a lot more models left, but not enough points.
Yeah.
That was a great question, Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, it turned into something, didn't it?
Well, there you go. Well, look, if you've got any thoughts on scenarios or drills or whatever that we could do, then send in an email. If you've got any other listener questions, then send it in to us. Sam, why don't you tell us what our email is?
The email address is joshingaroundinair@gmail.com.
Brilliant. We also have a book that is available on Amazon and any good bookstore. The Wargamer's Guide to
The Galaxy.
What's it called? I keep forgetting. It's quite a long name.
The Wargamer's Miniature Wargamer's Handbook.
The Tabletop Miniature Wargamer's Handbook is available on Amazon. So if you're looking for a little present, if you're looking for a little good read, it's available on Kindle as well. Enjoy. But yeah, thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
See you next time.
See you.